Whether you're in North or South Carolina or anywhere else in the world, enter the Cat Cave with Ryan Frick and Shannon Smith to listen to your favorite Carolina Panthers podcast as part of the Keep Pounding Podcast Network, where you can find shows like Embrace Debate and Inside the Vault, powered by the Fans First Sports Network, and on the Tobacco Road Sports Radio's YouTube channel, where you can also watch Believe in Panthers with Desmond Johnson and Jonathan Stewart. I'm Ryan Frick alongside Shannon Smith. Shannon, what's going on, bud?
Man, not too much. Let's talk about this game where it was a lot of highs and a lot of lows.
Yeah, I guess we're just gonna get right into it. No, like, how was your Thanksgiving type conversation? I'm kidding. I'm kidding. We're both on a deadline here. All right. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers came into last week's game needing a win to stay alive in the NFC South race. The Carolina Panthers also needed a win to put themselves in the conversation, as the Atlanta Falcons and New Orleans Saints, I think, both lost last week.
Yep.
I could be wrong about that. Nevertheless, the Carolina Panthers do fall to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in overtime, 26-23. Like Shannon said, there were a lot of highs and a lot of lows. Let's start off on defense. The defense got to Baker Mayfield 4 times. That is 9 sacks in the last 2 games. They did, however, give up a whopping 6.1 yards per carry average to Bucky Irving, who had 152 yards on the ground with a touchdown to add to it. Let's start talking off on defense here. I mean, I think the addition of a healthy DJ Wanham is doing wonders for this defense. They've signed a couple people here and there. But there was one play where Wanham and Clowney both got in the backfield at Baker Mayfield. How did you like what you saw on offense?
Oh, I was very happy about it. Though defensively, just getting after the quarterback was the essential thing, because Baker Mayfield has shown that he could pass the ball. And that was something that was a factor in what Carolina had to do in order to win. Now, of course, Bucky Irvin has been doing well. He has been getting his yards. He's been killing it on the ground. But we all know that the Buccaneers want to pass the ball. And that was something that Baker Mayfield tried to do. He did pretty good at it, but when DJ Wanham, when Jadeveon Clowney were feasting in the backfield, and it's your quarterback that's getting it, Carolina was playing some very good football on defense. They were getting after the quarterback, and that helps very much.
Yeah, to your point, I mean, it's everybody's talking great stuff about J.C. Horn out in coverage these days. There were some penalties on defense in this game, but I'll tell you right now, I'm hopeful for the future of this defense. I mean, Mike Evans made his return in this game, and not his return in this game, but this is his second game back from a hamstring injury, and he did what he always does to the Carolina Panthers: 8 catches, 118 yards, and a touchdown for Mike Evans. When you look at offense, Bryce Young, once again, did not throw an interception in this ball game. 298 yards passing, 26 of 46 with only 1 sack allowed in this game as well. I think the story here is the fact that it's not about Adam Thielen looking like he's making an impact again. By the way, made a miraculous catch late in this game that the officials called back because they said he did not control the catch through the ground contact. I'm not sure what they were looking at. I mean, this was a touchdown every day of the week and twice on Sunday, but for some reason it was not a touchdown for Adam Thielen. They would eventually score on that drive anyway, but Adam Thielen looking like he's back to form, which opens up the offense. However, the story about this offense is that Chuba Hubbard, for the second straight game, only averaging 3.6 yards per carry. Shannon, thoughts on Chuba Hubbard's decline in the last 2 weeks?
Well, when it came down to it, Bryce has actually been playing some good football. He's been passing the ball very well. He's been effective in the air. Sometimes that kind of takes away from another aspect of the offense. And apparently the running game was something that defenses really knew that they had to crack down on with Carolina, because Chuba's ran the football very well this year. He's done good running the ball. He did good last year as well, too. So there's going to be a lot of times where they're stacking that box. And apparently, Bryce Young is finding ways to get the forward pass going. And plus, that offensive line is giving him time to throw. Let's be honest with you. Give credit to the offensive line. They're giving Bryce time to throw the ball. But apparently, the running game is being keyed a lot more by opposing defenses. So that does kind of take away from Carolina's offense. But yeah, it's just rough to see with Chuba because Chuba's been such an integral part of that offense, and you don't want to have him slip.
Yeah, like I don't want to be angry about it, but it's frustrating that the Carolina Panthers offense can't click on all cylinders for an entire game. You're either going to be really good on the ground with this Panthers offense, or you're going to be really good through the air. And really good through the air, I mean, I'd have to do the math real quick. Just under 300 yards on 26 attempts. It doesn't seem like a whole lot of yards per attempt, yards per completion for Bryce Young. But there are some plays being made. The touchdown that the Carolina Panthers scored to take the lead in the fourth quarter was Bryce Young stepping up in the pocket, hitting his receiver in the back of the end zone, well, not in the back of the end zone, but hitting his receiver across the middle. Touchdown scored, and the Panthers take the lead. I mean, it sort of was like, I don't know. For me, it was the light bulb turning on. Like it was, okay, this is what we've been looking, this is what we've been waiting for out of this offense. Bryce Young has gotten some confidence. They did it a year late, but that's okay. If they had done this last year, then Dave Canales wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be seeing the growth and improvement of this team. A few years ago, Dan Campbell took over the Detroit Lions, and they won 3 games. And I said, this is the best 3-win team in NFL history. And watch out because Dan Campbell's going to get this team right. And now the Detroit Lions sit at, I believe, 11-1 on the season. 1 loss, I know for a fact. This game, granted, albeit the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were 5-6, so it's not an impressive team. It's not like the Kansas City Chiefs the week prior that needed a field goal to win at the end. It's not like their opponent this coming week against the Philadelphia Eagles, who have, I believe, 1 loss on the season as well, maybe 2. But something clicked with me in this game where they're able to get after the quarterback. They're able to pass the ball. They're able to protect Bryce Young. He's protecting the football. And unfortunately, it was a Chuba Hubbard fumble in overtime that set up the game-winning field goal for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I don't know how to pose this question other than just to pose it. Earlier this season, I said that Bryce Young wasn't the guy. He threw his first interception on his first pass attempt and came off the field laughing about it.
Yep.
Having said that, Shannon, is Bryce Young starting to give you hope for the future of the Carolina Panthers?
I would say right now, yes. And now, what has to be understood when you ask that question, Ryan, is what has gotten better around him. And that was the offensive line. They went out and spent money on an offensive line, and it gave Bryce time to throw the ball. Of course, you're going to have success with a good offensive line as a quarterback. You're going to have success, yes. You got to get the ball there. You've got to get the ball to your receivers. You got to make good plays. You got to be able to improvise. You got to be able to limit turnovers. And Bryce has actually done that in the past 4 games. He's done that. Carolina's getting close. They're not getting the doors blown off of them. But also you have to understand as well, too, and I don't want to take anything away from Bryce Young, but his team is actually starting to believe in themselves. They're starting to come together as a team. You've got guys stepping up. You've got a Dave Moore stepping up. You've got a Jonathan Brooks stepping up. You've got Sanders, our young tight end, stepping up. You've got this offensive line stepping up. You got the defensive line getting in there and causing havoc in the backfield with Baker Mayfield trying to pass the ball. They were doing the same thing last week with Kansas City. They were doing it in their 2 wins. They got to the quarterback. They were able to work as a team and able to get some things. Sometimes 1 or 2 wins can get your mind going, can get your mind frame going, can give you some type of confidence. And I think that's what's happening right now. You look back at these games and you see they've been in these games. Now, mind you, it doesn't help that there's still losses at the end of the day. But sometimes you can look at it like the Kansas City game. There were fans saying it was a morale, like it was a morale win. It was a moral win, a moral victory. And although moral victories don't get you in the playoffs, it's just the fact that they hung in there with a Super Bowl contender, a Super Bowl champion. So a team that's probably going to have the home field advantage in the playoffs this year. Carolina was able to hang with them, and they were able to get in there. They were able to play well, and you can't take that away from them. But back to your question here, does he give you hope for the future? Yeah, if Carolina can build around him.
Yeah, let's talk about a couple guys you mentioned for a second. Jatavion Sanders is possible to return this week after what we thought was a pretty devastating neck injury a
Yeah,
few short weeks ago. Interesting to see what he does because he was really starting to come on before his injury. And if you add him to the mix with Adam Thielen and Xavier Legette, you've got some weapons on this offense to sort of spread the ball around. Like you said, David Moore has stepped up in the last few weeks. He was the leading receiver in the game against the Chiefs. Let's talk about Jonathan Brooks for a second because he's sort of like the stat line doesn't show it, but he sort of had a coming out party last week. 3 catches, 23 yards out of the backfield. He also had 6 carries for 18 yards. So averaged less yards per carry than Chuba Hubbard did. But Jonathan Brooks, in the couple of touches that he got, looked explosive. And I've been saying this since last season that the Carolina Panthers needs to think about, at least in the offseason, making a trade for Miles Sanders to relieve him of his duties as the backup in Carolina. But like at this point, I feel like it would behoove the Carolina Panthers just to outright release Miles Sanders and eat whatever money they're going to owe him this year. I mean, the New York Giants are eating $47 million in dead cap space to release Daniel Jones, who is now on the practice squad for the Minnesota Vikings in case something happens to Sam Darnold down the stretch. So I bring up those two guys, Brooks and Sanders, to say that like in the offseason, I'm not sure how much more talent you can build around him outside of just continuing to get younger at receiver, getting young on defense. We have a lot of, if they were college football players, you'd call them upperclassmen, a lot of aging players on defense. A guy like Shaq Thompson who can't stay healthy. I think, you bring Brian Burns back instead of Shaq Thompson. At least Brian Burns is still on the field right now. Same with Frankie Louvu. But, we didn't mention this. They also picked off Baker Mayfield twice in this game.
yeah,
There's pieces in place.
yeah.
And Bryce Young actually playing with confidence and playing with some competence, like it's making us the believers once again. There's so much more that you could really dive into, but I'm excited to see the continued development of Bryce Young as he continues in this offense with this roster. But this is what I was going to say. You mentioned the fact that last week's game against Kansas City was a moral victory. This week sort of didn't feel that way because we had the chance to win it in overtime. We forced the punt, and we go down the field. We're in field goal range, or at least getting close to field goal range, and Chuba Hubbard coughs it up, and we cannot stop the Buccaneers offense in overtime, and they're able to march down the field and kick a field goal in a very, very quick time. But I will go back to the comparison that I made with the Detroit Lions back when they were 3-13. They lost more games that year by last second field goals by 3 points or less than I believe any team in the NFL. And I could be wrong about that, so don't quote me. But I remember quite a few games that year came down to last second field goals. A Justin Tucker 64-yarder that broke the hearts of the Detroit Lions. So like, as a Panthers fan, as a Panthers supporter, you sort of have to view this as, you know what? We aren't winning these games right now. But I think with the right people in place and with the right roster additions, we could start winning these games.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And especially inside the division, because preseason I picked the entire NFC South to go 8-9, and with the exception of maybe the Carolina Panthers, that's still a very, very big possibility. And so going forward, I know Atlanta Falcons fans are optimistic about Michael Penix Jr. I'm not sure how optimistic they are about Kirk Cousins anymore after a couple back-to-back multi-interception games for him. The New Orleans Saints is going to be in a rebuild come next year with a new coaching staff, potentially a new quarterback, and we talked about an aging roster. Alvin Kamara is getting up there in terms of running back age. And then you look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who just edged out the Carolina Panthers this past week. With again, you talk about aging players. Yeah, they've got a young Bucky Irving and Rashad White. Baker Mayfield did just sign an extension, so at least they got a quarterback around. Mike Evans missed a lot of this season, and he hasn't missed a lot of any of his seasons in the NFL. Chris Godwin, I would be willing to say there's a high likelihood that Chris Godwin does not return to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, because he was sort of playing without a contract this year, breaks his ankle in garbage time in a game this year, and now he's heading into the offseason as a free agent, not potentially getting the money he would have gotten. So the NFC South for the next few years is going to be sort of this, I almost used a bad word, sort of this crapshoot, right? Like it's going to be anybody's division to go take. And at least the way that Bryce Young has played over the last month, it gives you hope. Now we could see him regress and turn into what we expected him to be, after week one. But to be the ultimate optimist, I'm going to have to go with, yes, Bryce Young is giving me hope for the future. Shannon, this weekend does not get any easier for the 3-9 Carolina Panthers. I mentioned they had to go, if everybody was going to go 8-9, it's highly unlikely for the Panthers, because the 3-9 Panthers travel up to Philadelphia to take on the 10-2 Philadelphia Eagles Sunday, 1:00 kickoff on Fox. Something has clicked with the Philadelphia Eagles, and that something is Saquon Barkley, my pick for the MVP of the NFL this year. I don't think you can go with Lamar Jackson. I don't think you can go with Patrick Mahomes. And as someone who on this show has admitted to rooting for the Detroit Lions, I can't argue for Jared Goff at this point. You can't have a 5-interception game and call yourself the league MVP when you're going out here doing what nobody has done since Adrian Peterson a decade ago in Saquon Barkley running with purpose, running with anger, with a chip on his shoulder. And as the Eagles host the Panthers, they are a 12.5-point favorite this weekend. You can talk all you want about moral victories and keeping them close. Shannon, I don't think they keep it close this weekend. I think the Eagles are about to run roughshod over the Carolina Panthers.
I think this is going to be the game that makes the Panthers wish they would have got the last two. I think this is gonna be the game where it's gonna be like that. We could have beat Kansas City, we could have beat Tampa Bay, and now you're gonna play a squad that's outright playing some good football. Now I've said a lot of bad stuff about Nick Sirianni this year because he acted like a kid in the beginning of the season. It's now going to come back and bite me because Philadelphia is playing. They've got a good unit. Saquon Barkley, of course. And he's my pick for MVP as well, too, because I really don't want to see another quarterback win it. I really don't. Not this year, at least. Not this year.
Yeah.
I don't want to see a quarterback win it this year, especially with the dynamic running that Saquon Barkley has been doing, the highlights that he's been putting up. But also one thing about it is Philadelphia's defense has played very, very good in the past 5 games. They've gotten to the quarterback probably more than any team in the NFL in the past 5 weeks. So that's what's going to scare me about this game here. So, yeah, I'd probably say Philadelphia is probably going to get that 12 and more.
Yeah, the Eagles are still vying to take the number 1 seed in the NFC come playoff time. So they're still chasing the Detroit Lions. But yeah, I've got a feeling that Saquon is going to, if Bucky Irving can run for 152 yards on 25 carries, Saquon Barkley did a backwards hurdle a few weeks ago that was so impressive that they added it to EA Sports Madden video game.
Yes. I saw that. Yes.
Like, I don't want to try to hype up the opponent for the Carolina Panthers this weekend, but it's going to be a long day. All the hope that we've just talked about, all the optimism we just talked about Bryce Young in this offense and the defense being able to get to the quarterback. The two quarterbacks they played in the last 2 weeks, Patrick Mahomes did run for over 60 yards against the Carolina Panthers 2 weeks ago. Baker Mayfield has never been known to be a mobile quarterback. Jalen Hurts is, as far as mobility is concerned, is right up there with Patrick Mahomes. If not even more mobile than Patrick Mahomes. I know he's faster. And being able to get 4 sacks on Baker Mayfield will not translate into getting those sacks against Jalen Hurts. Listen, maybe find something to do during the game. Watch the game in the background while you play on your phone. If you got a Nintendo Switch, play the Switch handheld while the game's going. Do something, because it's gonna be. And I think Dez, our producer Dez, has said it before. Like, he sort of looks forward to like the 4:00 kickoff. Maybe I have it backwards, but I think it was he looks forward to the 4:15 kickoff because like he can sort of enjoy his day, and then like let it get ruined midway through the day, or maybe he likes to get him over with at 1:00 so he can just like move on and find something else to occupy his time and his mind through the rest of the night. Shannon, if you want to find him over on social media, he is on X and Instagram at podcast_Smitty. It is on the screen if you're watching over the Tobacco Road Sports Radio's YouTube channel. To find me on social media, I am at Tapouts and TDs on X. I'm on Facebook.com/Tapouts and Touchdowns. And on Instagram, I am at Ryan Frick Comedy. But don't just follow and like those pages. Make sure you follow and like the Cat Cave social media pages. Facebook.com/The Cat Cave, FFSN. On Instagram and X, we are at the Cat Cave _FFSN. That's at the Cat Cave _FFSN. There's only 2 F's there. Shannon, before we get out of here, anything else you want to leave the audience with?
Let's hope for a good game. Let's hope for it. Maybe we're wrong about if we can beat Philadelphia, but I seriously doubt it.
Yeah, try to remain optimistic about this weekend's game. But until then, you may now exit the Cat Cave, and make sure you listen to more content over on the Tobacco Road Sports Radio's YouTube channel and more Carolina Panthers themed podcasts on the Keep Pounding Podcast Network, powered by the Fans First Sports Network. For Shannon Smith, I'm Ryan Frick, and we'll see you next week right back here inside the Cat Cave.
Go Panthers.